Hey there folks, Troy Gretsch from IntoDrums.com here with another video for you. In this video, I want to talk about something that goes beyond just playing, and that is how to get gigs and keep them. As a young player, I had some big dreams to make a career out of this, and lucky for me, I had people around me to put me in the right direction, and I've been lucky enough to carve out a nice little network of people that I work with regularly, and I'm lucky enough that I can make a career and do this full time. The things I'm going to talk about in this video may seem like common sense, but I'm actually surprised at how many people don't utilize this kind of thing in their approach to building a network in any industry. Personally, I've been really fortunate in that I've had many opportunities because of people I've known and stuff like that, but still, this applies to everybody. Now, the points I'm going to make today will go a long way to helping you not only get the gig, but hopefully retain it and keep getting called back. Now, a little background on myself. I started when I was 11, turning 12, and I started doing gigs when I was about 15. They were mainly wedding kind of style gigs. My first actual ever gig was playing at a bridal fair at Melbourne Town Hall when I was 15, and I had to play like 3 songs in front of a packed audience. I think there was like 5,000 people there or something, and yeah, I was really crapping my pants. Now, when I say first gig, that was my first paid gig, okay? And the thing was with that, I actually didn't even get paid with cash. I got paid with gigs. So from that gig, I was given 2 or 3 gigs out of that weekend of work that I did. So basically, I was recommended to do this bridal fair, and I had to play 2 or 3 songs on maybe 3 to 5 times a day, which went along with the bridal fair show. So we played before and after, and I just spent the weekend doing it. The guys who were supposed to be playing in the band were in a big name band at the time and didn't really want to be seen doing the bridal fair thing. So I was pretty much brought in just to play the 2-3 songs, and they would pay me in gigs. Those 2 or 3 songs that I was given, I learnt the crap out of them. I tried to make sure they were as good as they could be, and that way the people who I was performing with on a day didn't feel like, oh man, we're carrying this guy. And that was step 1 of getting me to the next gig. So then from that gig, I got my 3 gigs, and each one of those, I had to learn, for those 3 gigs, I had to learn maybe 40 or 50 songs. And I was lucky I had a fair bit of time to do that. I maybe had a month or something, and I just spent whatever time I could really learning those songs. So I didn't need a chart. I didn't need cheat sheets and stuff. It was all up here. So that way I could play the music and really enjoy myself and create a good vibe at the gig and not worry about keeping my head in a chart. So from those gigs, I was then in those guys' minds, hey, this guy Troy can play and he did a really good job. We'll keep him in mind in the future. Now, jumping forward a month later, I had a cousin who was in a wedding band, a reception band, and they were looking for a new drummer. Their drummer was pretty much just throwing it in. He'd had enough. He'd been playing wedding gigs for 30 years. He had enough. And they wanted someone to come in and do it. And they wanted someone fresh. So they actually asked my brother if he wanted to do it. Now, my brother's a trombone player. He's a fantastic drummer. And they heard him play and they thought, wow, he's really good. And he recommended me for the gig. He said, well, if you think I'm good, you should hear Troy play. Now, the hard part with that was convincing them to give me a go, because I was 15 at the time, and the next youngest person in the band was 35. These guys worked maybe once a week, fairly consistently, and I really wanted it. It was a great opportunity to cut my teeth. Playing in a wedding kind of style band was hard because you had to learn some old kind of stuff you wouldn't normally listen to. Like I had to play old tangos, I had to play some European music, I had to play rock and roll, 60s music, 70s disco, 80s retro, and at the time it was 90s and top 40 stuff. So there was a really wide gamut to kind of play, and you needed to be a bit of a chameleon in that situation. So it was a great learning experience. So I eventually convinced them to give me a go and did the audition. And as soon as I started playing, the keyboard player said, yes, I want him. We don't need to audition anyone else. I want him. I was stoked. I was very, very lucky. And I had that gig for another few years. So then I played with those guys for a couple of years. And then I actually ended up jumping into my other brother, who was a musician. He was in a busier reception band. And I ended up jumping into that band and just gigged a heck of a lot more in the next few years following that. But I felt I was stuck within this scene where nobody sort of had known me or anything like that. So I wanted to break out of that whole wedding scene and jump into the pub scene, clubs, and all that kind of stuff. So I started doing auditions and I joined a funk band. And this band, I played with them for a couple of years, and we actually only just started doing gigs. We did a whole bunch of rehearsals, we started doing gigs, and it was actually costing me money to be in this band. So at that stage I was in the wedding band and I was in the funk band, but the funk band didn't end up making me any money, so I had to do something really tough and I had to pull the pin on that. But an opportunity came up to start gigging with a pretty popular Melbourne cover band, and I jumped on it. A friend of mine that I met at Box Hill when I was doing my music course, he recommended me for an audition. I went for the audition and I didn't get it. That's right, I didn't get it. But what I did was, when I got the call and the guy who ran the band, his name's Louis, he said, "Oh man, it was so close. It was between you and this other guy who's an amazing player, but he just had the edge. He'd played with some big name guys." And he started basically just telling me of all the things this guy had done. And I was just the whole time thinking, this sounds like someone who's probably not going to be around for a long time. He's not going to be really invested in this band. So I just said to Louis on the phone, I said, "Well, mate, look, I really appreciate the opportunity to audition, but keep me in mind if you need a fill-in. I'd love to help you out and be involved in any way." And he really appreciated that, and he did. He kept me in mind, and sure enough, about a month or two later, the drummer who they got couldn't do a gig, and he got me to fill in, and I started working with the band that way. So I became the new regular filling guy. And then eventually, it would have been maybe 6 months later, the drummer had enough of the band and pulled the pin, and I got the call and I just jumped straight in. So because I was already the regular filling guy, these guys didn't have to do any auditions or anything. They just called me. Louis called me and said, "Hey man, such and such is leaving the band. Would you like the gig?" And of course, at the time I was like, yeah. Fantastic. I left the reception band I was in. I was with them for probably about 6 years or so. And I ventured into the cover band pub scene. And with that band, I was playing 3 nights a week. I was doing some interstate gigs. It was a really great learning opportunity. My playing changed a heck of a lot. I went from playing like wedding style stuff to actually having to hit quite hard and developing my rock band chops, which was a little bit challenging. It took me a little bit of time, but I made the adjustments as needed. And then from there, I was starting to fill in with other bands, and we'd have fill-in bass players and stuff like that, and fill-in guitarists, and they'd hear me play and they'd say, "Oh man, you're really nice to work with, and it's easy." And then actually from that band, I met a bass player who then got me into a corporate band, and I started working with them, and from there I got into other bands. So the point of the story is, realistically, every single gig you do is going to help you lead into new and better opportunities. So the bottom line with that is that you're only as good as your last gig. If you're playing with new people and you leave a bad impression, that's going to last, unfortunately. And the thing is, look, not everybody's going to love you, and that's fine. But you are going to meet lots of people along the way who you're really going to click with, and that's going to really go a long way in you getting into a whole bunch of different things. Now here comes a part where I think it's the most important. And these are the things that you need to do in order to keep the gigs. Now, number one, communication is king. So what I mean by that is, if you get an SMS, an email, a phone call, "Are you available for a gig?" you need to respond straight away. The longer you leave that, the more pressure you're going to put on the person who's trying to organize that gig. So if I wait 2 or 3 days to respond to a gig offer, the person who's booked me for the gig, the next time they need someone is going to think, "Oh, I'll ask Troy if they want the gig." But then they're going to remember, do I really want to wait 3 days? I want to know as soon as possible. I might try someone else. And that's all it takes. So something as simple as that can be the difference between you getting the gig and not. Now, in today's day and age, you got these things on you pretty much 24/7. Now, it's not like I'm answering texts and stuff at all hours, but if I do get a text or an email, I will respond usually within the first hour or so. of getting that. So in between lessons and stuff like that, I will check my phone, see if I've got any messages. If I do have a gig offer, I'll respond straight away. I check my diary, I've got it on my phone, I check and I respond straight away. I know for a fact this is a big factor in me getting more gigs, because I know that me saying yes, I'm available, or no, I'm not, is gonna stay in the mind of that person, and they're gonna remember when they want someone to answer quickly, who can I ask? They're gonna ask Troy. So one other thing I'll do is, if I get a message from someone who I don't know and they say, are you available for this date? And I so happen to not be available, I'll respond and say, no, sorry, I'm not available, but try these guys. And I've got a handful of guys that I recommend all the time. And I will say, try these guys. Sorry, I can't help you out, but please keep me in mind in future. I'd love to work with you. So what I've done there is I have not just said, no, sorry, I'm not available. I've gone out of my way to help this person. Now, more than likely, they're going to use one of the people that I've recommended, really like them, and probably use them again in the future. But another thing that often happens is they'll say, wow, I'll try Troy again because he actually helped me out and he said he really wants to work with me, so why not? I'll give him a go. So in a way, you're staying in that person's mind as someone who can help them out. Even if you're not available, you'll help them out. So communication is super important. The next thing you would think is quite obvious, but it's not. And that is knowing your stuff. So an example would be you book to do a cover band gig. No matter how last minute it is, whatever, they send you a set list. You go through this set, you mark the songs that you know. If there's like 10 songs you don't know, and depending on how much time you've got, if you've got a week or 2 weeks or something like a couple of days, do your best to try and learn those songs. My philosophy with this is when you learn a song on drums, you're learning it in one key. There's no learning it in different keys. Learn it and then it's another song you know. If you need to learn a few songs for a particular gig, make sure you take a note, make sure you do your best to learn those songs. That's gonna really put into the head of the people who's booking you that, oh, this gig's coming up, it's really important, we've got a few new songs, who can I get who I know is gonna really do their homework and learn the tracks. If you always present that you know what's going on, and that's gonna give you an edge over someone else who may be a better player, who may not learn the stuff properly and just try and wing it. In my experience, it really doesn't matter how great you are as a player if you're just phoning it in. It's a really horrible environment to be in when the people who are there don't want to be. So make it your mission to try and make the gig as comfortable as possible for everybody involved. So knowing your stuff is super important. Next, you may be required to do a rehearsal. If so, so be it. Don't try and be trying to get out of it and all that. If you don't want to do the gig, just say no to the gig, it's fine. But don't then try and pull out, say yes and try and pull out of stuff. If there's a rehearsal, you get to the rehearsal and you make sure you know your stuff when you get to the rehearsal. Which leads on to the next thing, which is punctuality. From my experience, one of the worst things a musician can do is be late. It puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the band for maybe a rushed sound check or a late rehearsal, and everybody's time is worth something, and it's really disrespectful when you rock up late because you're basically saying that your time is worth more than theirs. So for whatever reason, try your best not to be late. Sometimes things happen, and if you're the type of guy who's always early and you're always on time, that time where you're late, nobody's going to bat an eyelid. It's like, well, something must have really happened. But if you're the person who rocks up late every time and goes, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 that's going to get old and they're going to get over it and they're just not going to call you anymore. So an example of this would be you've got a rehearsal, you get a text, I've got a rehearsal 7 o'clock. That means 7 o'clock rehearsal starts, not get there at 7. This is a personal peeve of mine. When someone says to me, we're going to rehearse at 7 o'clock, that means we're going to start rehearsing at 7 o'clock, not rock up at 7 o'clock. So if rehearsal starts at 7, it starts at 7. Not 7:05, not get there with your gear at 7, it starts at 7. So for me, if it starts at 7, I get there at like 22, I make sure I'm set up and ready to go by 7 o'clock. Again, it's a case of being respectful of everybody else's time. You being ready to go on time is going to go a long way in having them call you back. The next thing, obviously, again, is being prepared, knowing your stuff. When you're at the rehearsal, you've done all your homework at home. You're not learning the song at rehearsal. You rock up, you play it, everyone knows it, you can run the stuff quickly, and everyone can get out of there and get back to their normal life. And if you so happen to be there and they're working on harmonies and they're doing stuff like that, they're working on vocal lines, don't play, just sit there. Just sit there and be quiet. Don't hit stuff. It's going to make their job a lot harder if you're constantly playing and doing stuff because you're bored. That's just part of the gig. For a drummer, 90% of a rehearsal is sitting around waiting for other people. It's just the nature of the beast. I wish it wasn't so, but it is. So sit there, shut up, and just be cool, and the rehearsal will go much quicker. In an ideal world, everyone will know their parts. They'll just play this stuff a few times. Everyone will get it down. Yes, cool, go home. Everyone's wrapped. Another great tip I'll give you for that is record the rehearsal. Most of you have a smartphone, so hit the little record function on it and just sit it down next to you. Record the rehearsal. That way you can go back and you can hear the way you ended songs and all that. Make notes if you need to. But if you are having a rehearsal and you've got a recording of how you actually played it, you've got then tempos, you've got everything. You got everything you need. You can actually go home and rehearse with that recording. And that way when you rock up to the gig, you're going to do that much of a better job. So be prepared, be punctual, super important. Then probably the last thing on the list, and it's something that, you know, everybody's different. I'm always trying to do my best not to do this, but try not to be an idiot on the gig. So be nice, try and get along with everybody. Try not to do anything that's going to really offend anybody. Now, some people you're just not going to really gel with, and that's fine. Just try not to step on their toes. You know, not everybody's going to love you. You're not going to love everybody. At the end of the day, you're there to do a job. Try and do the job well, get along with everybody, and just try not to be a douche, and you'll more than likely be called back. Another really important aspect that a lot of people just sort of overlook is being present. So 90% of the gig is you're sitting backstage with people and you're interacting and you're talking and all that. You're sitting around waiting for stuff to happen. This is your time to develop the relationships with the people in that room. So if you're detached from them, and what I mean is you don't know these people really well, you're new to it, you don't want to rock up with your laptop and be editing footage instead of communicating with them and getting to know them. It sort of goes a long way when you take the time to spend with them. Now, another really important thing of being present is to actually be present. Be there, be ready to go at the drop of a hat. You're going to be sitting around for a long time, but the organizer might walk in and go, hey, can you guys just jump up quickly and do a couple of tunes while they're doing this? And it wasn't on the run sheet. Now, you can either be a douche and say, no, well, it's not in our contract, we're not doing that, blah, blah, blah. Or you can get up and you can just do it. And that'll go a long way with the band leader who's trying to get more gigs in the future. If you're there, you can just jump up and do it. If you're gone down the street to get a coffee and you've gone to see your friends and all that from other gigs and you're not there, that's not really cool. Now, it's not to say you can't go and get a coffee, you can't do stuff, but if you're the type of person who's always not present, so when the downtime you've taken off and you've gone somewhere else instead of hang out with the people in that room, you're kind of sending a message that you don't really want to be with them at all. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm getting a message that this person who I'm working with doesn't want to come and hang out and talk to me and get to know me and really hang around with me, well, why would I want to call you and give you a gig? And I'd rather give the gig to someone that I like and someone that I've built a friendship with. So try and be present at the gig. It really does make a massive difference. I'm not saying you can't go for a coffee, but if you're going for a coffee, maybe go as a group. Everybody, hey, let's go out for a coffee. If the client needs us, they'll call us. You just do that kind of thing. And that way you're always present. You're always taking part in the behind the scenes stuff and you're ready to go whenever the band leader needs you. So to summarize, playing, you need to be a good player. That's a given. Communication, don't take days to respond to emails. Try and respond as quickly as you can to help the person organizing the event to get what they need done as soon as possible. Be punctual, be on time. If rehearsal starts at 7, you're ready to go at 7. If the sound check's at 3, you're ready to go at 3. Don't keep people waiting, be organized, get to where you need to go. If that means you need to go through a security check and all that kind of stuff, allow time. Super, super important. Get there, be on time, ready to go. Know your stuff, have the set list down pat before. If there's any new material you need to learn, make sure you know it, make sure you're reliable and you have everything under control. So on gig day, you're not stressed out, you're not learning stuff at the gig, writing notes, everything's cool. And lastly, be present. Make sure you're always available. At the drop of a hat, you can get up and you can do the job that you're being paid to do. So there you go. If you try and implement those things into your own career, I am super confident the phone is going to keep ringing. Those are the things that have worked for me and allowed me to develop relationships with some of the best musos in Melbourne and have my phone just ring and have my diary full. And remember, each gig will lead on to the next gig. So even if it's not, say, the best paying gig, if you still treat it well and you do a great job, that'll definitely lead on to other things in the future. I hope this video has helped shed some light on how you can build a career in the music industry. If you did like it, please hit that thumbs up. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing to the channel for more free lessons. I'll be back next week with another lesson for you. So until then, have a fantastic week. And as always, happy practicing.